You're probably sick of jumping off discovery calls thinking, well, that went pretty well, and then the prospect ghosts you a week later. You then replay the call in your head, but it's impossible to know really what worked, what didn't, and where you lost the prospect throughout the entirety of the process. Now, the top sales reps out there, they don't have this problem. They track a few simple metrics on each discovery call, so they know what worked, what went wrong, and then how to improve their process moving forward. And after training over 2,500 salespeople who've generated more than $1.4 billion in new revenue, I can tell you this. These metrics can change absolutely everything. So in this video, I'm going to explain exactly what the elite reps track so that you can finally improve your discovery call performance and use that information to close more sales. And the end goal of all this, right, to be the hero at the next sales meeting and obviously to pay off your mortgage and become financially free as well. So let's start with the first metric, the one that decides whether the deal should even exist in your CRM or not in the first place. Okay, so this first metric defines whether the buyer's situation even makes sense for you to try and attempt to solve. But what does that look like in practice? Well, typically reps jump into a discovery call asking questions like, okay, tell me what you're looking for. Maybe I can show you how we can help. 10 minutes later, they're pitching their product or service, but the buyer's not convinced, there is zero urgency, and all this is because the buyer's problem was never clearly defined in the first place. And this happens consistently, it happens all the time. Low-performing reps jump into pitching before defining three essential things, and these are the first three metrics that we need to look at. Where the buyer is now, where they need to get to, and how you can get them there. Because without the contrast between these two states, urgency is never going to hit home for the buyer, and they're never going to take action on whatever advice or product you put in front of them. So what do the top reps do instead? Well, they take the time to ask questions like this and really uncover the buyer's current reality, future reality, and the bridge between the two. They ask questions like, well, walk me through what's working right now and what isn't working. Then they ask follow-up questions about the buyer's future reality, like, if everything went perfectly over the next 6 months, what would that look like? What would the benefits of that be? And then finally, they try to highlight or at least identify the bridge between these two states, the buyer's current reality and their future reality. They ask questions like, if we could get you from here to there in the next 30 days, 90 days, whatever it is, would that make sense to investigate further? And you've got to think of it like this. The bridge between these two states, that's the opportunity that you're selling. You're not selling a product, you're not selling a service. The buyer doesn't care for any of that. They want their reality transformed from their current reality to their bigger, brighter, bolder future reality. So we need to define the buyer's current state, their desired future state, and the bridge between them. And if the buyer agrees to that, well, that is our first metric accomplished. And once that metric is ticked off, the next metric that we've got to cover is, well, it's pretty simple. Why should the buyer take action right now? Okay, so when the buyer knows where they want to get to and they've given us a kind of half okay that our product and service might be the bridge to get them from one place to another, the next step is to figure out why they should act today instead of 6 months from now. And I hear all the time when I'm reviewing calls within our training programs, reps will ask questions like, okay, great, well, when are you hoping to implement this? When would it be nice that this transformation happens? And when you frame up a question like that, the buyer is going to turn around to you and say, it'd be great if this happens sometime this year. It'd be great if this happens next quarter, or it'd be great if it even happens 3 quarters from now. The issue with framing up your questions like this, when it comes to this metric, the issue is that there is just no urgency. We've not identified a trigger event, and this often stalls deals indefinitely. Now, most reps avoid a trigger event question, which we're going to cover in a second, because they don't want to hear the buyer give them bad news. They're trying to avoid hearing the buyer say, oh, it might be next year, or there's no rush for this, or it's not a priority. They also typically don't want to feel like they are putting pressure on the buyer, pressure on their prospects on the calls. But elite reps go looking for the moment that something's changed. A new boss is on the scene, a missed target, a system that's broke. They're hunting for a trigger event rather than passively asking the buyer for their opinion on the level of urgency of getting this problem solved. And then once they find a trigger event, they try to tie that pain into a timeline and then ask further questions about it. So they might ask questions like, okay, you told me this VP has started last quarter and they want everything integrated by the end of next quarter. Is there a plan to make that happen? What happens if that plan doesn't work? Whose neck is on the line if all of this falls apart. A couple of questions like this, and the buyer's going to start sharing their timelines with us, and the sense of urgency is organically, naturally going to start to skyrocket in the conversation. So that's the second metric that elite reps are tracking on all of their disco calls. They're confirming that there is a clear trigger, something that makes the buyer's situation urgent enough to act right now. And if the trigger event isn't obvious, or the buyer doesn't realize that a trigger event has already occurred, even if the salesperson has seen this from a mile away, because maybe they've done this deal 100 times, they understand the situation better than the buyer themselves. If that is the case, then the elite seller is going to ask deeper and deeper questions until they pull out this urgency from the prospect. So that's the metric of urgency. Urgency sparks action, but emotion alone is not going to get a deal done. The next metric leans into the logical side of the deal. And this is absolutely integral. You've got to do it at the top of your discovery calls, otherwise the rest of the sales process is just going to fall apart. So even with a level of urgency, deals often die without logic to back up all of that emotion. So how do reps go about proving that the maths behind the deal actually work? Well, an average rep might claim, okay, this training is going to help you close more sales. They're going to literally proclaim it, like share it with the world as a statement, which sounds nice. But it's very easy for a prospect to brush off big claims like this during the discovery process. One, just not to take them seriously, or two, to proactively go, well, this is a salesperson telling me this. It can't possibly be true. They're probably lying to me, which is obviously not a good position to be in when we're trying to get a deal done further down the line. So what we need to do is help the buyer get some skin in the game before we start sharing all the wonderful results that we're going to deliver for them. If they don't have skin in the game, then the deal is not going to feel real. So what the top reps do on a discovery call is they qualify value as an exchange rather than something that's just given. So they ask questions like, well, if you spend $997 on our training program and your average deal size is $5,000, does it sound reasonable to you that we can help you get at least one more deal done over the next 90 days or so? In which case you'll have 5x your training spend with us. So you've spent $1,000 and brought in $5,000. Does that make sense on your end? And by asking a question like this, we've now made the deal real. We're not just throwing out numbers or quotes or statements that are on some piece of marketing material or on a website that the buyer could have found for themselves. Instead, we're now adding a little bit of value. We're doing a bit of consulting with them. We're saying, hey, if we start here, you spend this, because that's the exchange of value in B2B sales, right? You spend this, you're going to get that. Is the ROI, is the upside worth continuing this conversation? So that is the next metric. You've got to quantify the upside of the format of spend X, get Y, and you've got your buyer with now some skin in the game. And if the buyer agrees that the math makes sense, we can move on to the next metric that high level, high performing sales reps ask in their discovery calls. And that is to start discussing literal money, actual budgets, and not to shy away from this. Now, most sales reps avoid discussing money in their discovery calls, but the top performers bring it up in that very first meeting, and here is why. There is nothing, I've been here, right? There is nothing more annoying than spending weeks, loads of phone calls, loads of emails, crafting the perfect proposal. You're excited, your sales manager's excited about the deal, only to hear a few months down the line, the buyer come along and say, oh, we just don't have the budget for this right now. And if you regularly hear objections around budgets, it's because two things have likely gone wrong. One, if you get this objection during your discovery call, it's because you didn't hit the metrics of truly understanding your buyer's current reality, future reality, and the bridge from one side to the other. You probably also didn't hit the metric of confirming there's a trigger event and making sure that there's some urgency to make this transformation from the buyer's current reality to the future reality happen. Very likely you also didn't get agreement on the metric that the ROI calculation makes sense for everyone involved. And that is why the budget element of all this comes at this part in this step-by-step framework. You've got to get all the other pieces in place before the budget question makes sense. And the second reason why you may hear a budget objection is just simply because you're speaking to the wrong people. Now, let's assume that you're speaking to the right person, you've got them on the discovery call. There's value to discussing the budget because delaying the budget just kills your efficiency of pipeline. It just kills your CRM, it kills the flow of deals running through it. So smart reps confirm the budget of the buyer early in the process by asking questions like, okay, just so we're on the right tracks, is the budget already set aside for this, or do we need to justify that spend and then go and hunt that cash out? That's it. There's no reason to feel uncomfortable asking a question like that. The buyer simply isn't going to care. They're going to be able to answer that in a very straightforward way. And this is one question that absolutely keeps your conversations grounded in reality, and it's going to save you countless hours and hours and hours across the months, quarters, years, across your sales career of just chasing people who never had the budget to deal with you in the first place. And heck, if they don't have the budget, it's not the end of the world. You can pivot that prospect to a smaller pilot scheme, or you can just move on from them, dump them fast, and speak to people who are actually qualified to do business with you. And quite frankly, the top reps know that the fastest route to yes often starts by getting a couple of no's as quick as possible from people who are just trying to waste your time. Okay, so with the money metric handled, how do the top reps keep control of the rest of the sales process? Because at this point in your discovery call, you're pretty much wrapping things up. Well, imagine doing everything right and then you let the deal just drift off into the ether, the black hole of deals that never happened because there were no next steps firmly agreed in everyone's calendars. What? You'd feel stupid, right? It'd be a terrible, stupid mistake to make. Well, I see this all of the time when I'm reviewing discovery calls. Like, not even some of the time, 20-30% of the time when I first start working with people, sellers don't end the call by booking the next one in the diary, whilst you're all sat there, probably in front of a computer, probably with calendars available to get things booked in. Reps often end discovery calls with, I'll follow up next week, or I'll send you an email, or some nonsense like this. The buyer says, yeah, sure, sounds great, and then they just disappear, and they're never to be heard from again. Now, top reps refuse to let all of the hard work that they put in on their discovery call go to waste, and you shouldn't let all your hard work go to waste either. So before they hang up, they ask a question like, okay, great, let's get a call booked in now so we don't move momentum here. Does it make sense to open your calendar and we'll compare dates and times? They then lock in that next meeting whilst the buyer is still on the line. And as a side note here, there's no need to have a meeting go from week to week to week. There's absolutely no reason why you can't have a meeting at 9 a.m. and then another meeting at 3 p.m. unless there's tons of work that needs to happen in the meantime. The goal is to shrink your deal cycle lengths by rapid, fast meeting the day after or 2 days after, as opposed to a week later, a month later, or a quarter later. And this is the last metric that all high-level reps track for every single one of their discovery calls. And the value of this is that at the end of every call, you track whether you hit each one of these metrics or not. You're going to catch elements of your sales process, of your discovery call process, that are slipping. Maybe you miss the urgency questions, or you forget to ask about ROI. Well, the more that you track this process, it can just be a pad of paper on the desk next to you with a series of headings, and you just tick the boxes as you run through them. That's all it has to be. That is how you build consistency into your process, and it becomes a feedback loop that compounds every single week. Because you might watch this video and go through this process, hopefully you do, and you start off with 2 of these 5 metrics getting missed time and time again. Well, you're not going to miss them for long if you keep tracking them, and you're going to keep improving and upgrading your skill set as you go along. And that is why the highest performing elite sales reps don't rely on luck. They tend to hit quota year on year, or surpass quota year on year, or in President's Club year on year on year. And it's because their process is repeatable and it keeps them on track, because you as a human, you're emotional, you're all over the place, and that is why we need step-by-step processes like what we teach on this channel and over at salesman.com Academy and our different training programs. That is why we need these processes to keep these emotional machines that we're all living within on track and heading towards success. So that's the 5 discovery call metrics that you've got to track. What if you master your discovery calls and deals are still slipping through the cracks? What if the real bottleneck to hitting your quota isn't the process, it's you? Well, watch this next video to kill the current version of yourself that's keeping you stuck and become the kind of person who consistently exceeds your goals.